Hello. Did you know that there are more than just file permissions on your Linux file? There's also these things called attributes. What are Linux attributes? Well, Linux attributes are basically special features we apply to the file, or I guess you would say special rules or conditions that are applied to the file. How do we change Linux attributes? With the change attribute command, of course, or change attribute. Right? If you actually try to say the Linux words instead of what they're doing the shorthand for, you're going to end up with nonsense. Let's go ahead and get started and work on changing attributes. Hold on, I was getting ahead of myself there. We also have to talk about what the attributes are first. Helps if you know what you're changing before you actually go in and change it. Don't make that mistake in production. There are about 9 attributes. Honestly, you only really need to remember about 3 of them, so we're going to go over those 3. If you do want to know about the rest, Google search it. You're an IT person, hopefully. Google is your friend. It's my best friend, actually. The first attribute you should know is lowercase a. Lowercase a allows files to be added but not removed. The next attribute I recommend you burn into your memory is capital D. So what does capital D do? Well, capital D skips the step where Linux writes information to RAM and makes sure that Linux writes information directly to disk. So normally on Linux systems, when you write to a file, you're not actually writing to that file. What happens is you're writing to RAM, and then at some point later, determined by the kernel will write the contents of RAM directly to that file. This speeds up write performance, but it makes it so that if you have a database, it might take a long time for your server to shut down. This kind of forces that step to be skipped, so all writes are written directly to that file and not to RAM. The downside is that your database is going to be a little slower. The upside is your database is probably still going to be there if you had to emergency shut down your Linux server. So it's a very good upside. Trust me, you don't want to spend a couple days restoring a VM because you messed up a database. The last attribute is the lowercase I attribute, which makes files immutable. Basically, that means you cannot delete that file. This is very useful in case you have some files that you want to make sure no one on the server is ever able to delete for any reason. Okay, so now that we've read the theory, let's put things into practice. You can't learn unless you actually try the things you're reading out. Let's get started. The first thing we do is we go ahead and log in. Then afterwards, we have to elevate ourselves to root. So let's do that real quick. And there we go. After that, we create a file. So to create a file, we do touch my file. So now let's change my file to an immutable file. To do that, we do change attribute plus I, lowercase I for immutable. And then we do my file. Now, when we try to do rf/my file, you'll see even though we're root, we're not able to delete that file. We have the highest level permissions on that system, and even that user still can't delete it. So to confirm that we also just make changes to that file, you can do ls attribute. You'll see nothing else here has attributes applied except for the my file, which we just apply the immutable attribute to, which is this I right there. And that does it for this video, boys. We just learned how to change attributes. Swing by next time for chapter 8, where we go over Linux networking. A very riveting subject, I'm sure.